Obviously, today marks the beginning of this new sort of dynamic between the Patriots and Jets rivalry, division rivals, and it has been very one-sided for the past couple decades between New England and New York. But obviously, these two teams are now in very different situations, of course. The Jets now with Aaron Rodgers and what is overall a very talented roster. They are hoping to establish themselves as Super Bowl contenders, while the Patriots are moving on from Bill Belichick, which is a sight that a lot of Jets fans probably like to see. And they are now on with Gerard Mayo and a younger, maybe less talented team than New York, but they have been feisty through the first couple of weeks. So I do think that this will end up being a pretty competitive game, all things considered. Now, Vegas does not feel that same way. The line, according to ESPN Bet at the time of recording here, is the Jets being favored by 6 points, the over-under being 38.5. So just purely from a take all of the personnel out of this statement as well, of this game as well, it is interesting. You don't normally see a line that big with an over-under line so low. So that is something to take into consideration. So very quickly here on some injury updates for this game. Both teams had some big losses on the defensive side of the ball during week 2. The Patriots lost their best linebacker, Juwan Bentley, for the season with a torn pec. He was their leading tackler from 2023, a captain of that team, so a major loss there. And the Jets may also, at least in this game, be without their 2023 tackles leader in linebacker CJ Mosley. He left the game last week versus the Titans early on with what's being listed as a toe injury. He has not practiced all week. Of course, a short week on top of that as well. So he hasn't officially been ruled out, but it feels like he's sort of doubtful at this point. And then the Jets also suffered a brutal blow with star edge rusher Jermaine Johnson tearing his Achilles, which means that he will be out for the remainder of the 2024 season. He was selected to his first Pro Bowl last year, recorded 7.5 sacks, which is the most from a returning player for that Jets defense. So a couple really tough losses there for New York. The bright side, though, as well, is that their first-round pick, Will McDonald, their first-round pick from 2023, that is, Will McDonald, racked up 3 sacks in just 35 snaps last week versus the Titans. So you're hoping that you can get some level of production there to make up for the loss of Jermaine Johnson. He's obviously expected to get more runway in this game against the Patriots. But the Jets also, last note on the injuries here, are getting a little bit of reinforcements back with DJ Reed and Michael Carter both cleared to play to help out that back end of the defense. Now, diving into the keys of the game here, the Patriots, like I mentioned, have been feisty through 2 weeks, toughing one out in a huge upset in week 1 against the Bengals, and then ultimately falling in overtime to the Seahawks. But to even be in that game, a Seahawks team that a lot of people think could be a playoff contender, is a pretty good sign under this, new tenure of Gerard Mayo. Are they the most talented team? No, but as of right now, they are playing extremely smart football, and I think that is the biggest key to this game, is how long can the Patriots keep this up of playing mistake-free football? Because last week was the second straight game that the Patriots didn't turn the ball over, which in week 1 ended a streak of 15 consecutive game where New England did have a turnover. It was actually week 3 against the Jets last season in 2023. That was the last time they didn't have a turnover. And it is the first time since late in the 2022 season, weeks 12 and 13, that they have gone 2 consecutive games without a turnover. And that has just sort of been the ultimate killer for the Patriots these past couple years. Of course, yes, the talent level has not been there either. And even now, I wouldn't say it's like they have this. They definitely do not have any sort of elite quarterback play going for them right now. Jacoby Brissett has been very solid, but in total, he still has less than 300 passing yards on the season. But what he can do for them is just be a smart quarterback that doesn't put their defense in bad situations. Because these past few years, I still feel like New England's defense has been in that upper echelon, maybe top 10-ish of defenses in the NFL. Now, last year, they lost Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon for the entire season. This year, no Judon, was traded in the offseason, and then additionally are missing their star defensive lineman, Christian Barmore. But even despite that, and now they're going to be missing Bentley as well to add to that. So there's definitely a real possibility that some of these holes could start catching up to them. But I just have a hard time believing that this Patriots defense is going to be a liability defensively. Now, you lose Bill Belichick, so inherently there is maybe some sort of a step back, but my counterpoint to that would be that Gerard Mayo is a player that his entire professional career while in the NFL as a starting linebacker for a Super Bowl winning team was with the Patriots under Bill Belichick. Then when he made the jump to coaching, he was under Bill Belichick once again. So I have no lack of confidence in Mayo to be able to at least philosophically be a good defensive coordinator / coach. And I think that, you add to that as well all of these sort of motivation factors where it seems like the team is very much rallying behind them. I think the Patriots are in a good position to be a really tough out week in and week out, and especially this upcoming week against the Jets where, yes, they are very talented overall. You have Aaron Rodgers, who isn't at the peak of his powers, but of course still the mental side of the game Rodgers has down pat, and he made a couple really impressive throws last week. The touchdown pass on a wheel route to Breece Hall over the defender, the throw that he had on 3rd and short to it was Garrett Wilson in the fourth quarter to help them sort of close out that game. Rodgers still has some of it in the tank, but one of the key differences, I feel like at least, from what the Patriots saw when they got gashed a little bit more in the passing game last week to this upcoming week is the fact that Rodgers, for as much as that mental side is still there and he can make some of those high leverage throws, we know the mobility isn't there. And Geno Smith had a lot of success last week when he was able to operate out of the pocket, move the pocket, and then keep his eyes downfield for those throws. So I think it's going to be a lot more difficult from New York in that sense. Now, the Jets have, like I mentioned, a lot of playmakers on offense. You're really specifically looking at 3. It's Garrett Wilson, it's Breece Hall, and then Braylon Allen, the 4th round, I believe he was selected, rookie out of Wisconsin, the running back. He showed out last week, scoring 2 touchdowns, and somebody that I think has the potential to be one of the most fun running backs in the league just based off of his size at such a young age. The energy that he runs with almost gives me a little bit of an Isaiah Pacheco vibe that I think that, there are pieces there, but they are also a little bit shorthanded in terms of depth at that receiver position. I just don't think it's going to be easy on either side necessarily, but if there were to be one sort of mismatch based off of what we've seen through the first 2 weeks, is that the Patriots' running game should be able to have success against the Jets. The Patriots are one of the top teams in the league right now in terms of rushing yards. Ramondre Stevenson has been an animal for them for over 200 yards. Antonio Gibson had a huge performance last week against the Seahawks with 95 rushing yards. So they are 4th in total rush yards for a team. Meanwhile, the Jets, on the other hand, are in that bottom 10, allowed 180 rush yards to San Francisco and 130 last week to the Titans. So this is a situation where Robert Saleh, obviously now head coach of the New York Jets, his background is in defense, and he has expressed no concern in their lack of ability to stop the run. We just haven't necessarily seen that yet. and CJ Mosley is now going to be out for them, that is a number of sort of factors that makes me think that the Patriots can keep this game close. Again, what I said at the beginning of the show as well is the fact that a 6-point spread with an over-under as low as 38.5 points already sort of just that as a baseline fact does make me feel like this should be a cover spot. But then when you talk about sort of the other factors on top of that, I really do think that the Patriots can cover in this game, and I would not be shocked whatsoever if they ultimately win outright. But there are some other sort of game time decision injuries for the Patriots that could change things up. On both the offensive line and the defensive side of the ball, where that could throw a wrench in things. Maybe the Jets do start to, build on the momentum that they really had. I thought it was from the second quarter and on of that Titans game where it seemed like they sort of came to an understanding that Rodgers doesn't have the mobility in the offensive line, even though it is improved from last season. It's still not an elite group. And that was also, for whatever it's worth, a tough defensive front from Tennessee. So I'll give them credit there. And the Patriots don't have quite as many A-list names as the Titans, but they are a young and hungry group that I think is going to be able to apply some pressure. But that being said, again, the adjustment that the Jets made last week of just trying to get the ball out on time, playing with not pace in terms of how quickly they are snapping the ball, but within the plays themselves, getting it out a little bit quicker, almost Miami-esque in the way that I think that Tua operates that offense for the Dolphins. And we'll have to see ultimately, whether or not we have the likes of a Mike Williams take on a bigger role for the Jets. Allen Lazard is somebody, he had some moments. He had a couple touchdowns in the game against San Francisco in week 1, but one of them coming in garbage time. I believe it was even from Tyrod Taylor. One of them coming on a little bit of a gimmick of a free play, a nice play at that. And Aaron Rodgers, again, that's where he shows his sort of mental strength in terms of being able to still operate an offense. But I have some real hesitations with the makings of that Jets offense, and I think that they are going to have to prove themselves a little bit more here because the Patriots are top 2 in terms of total rush yards allowed so far this season. They benefited from playing a Bengals team that hasn't really established the run just yet. Then week 2, Kenneth Walker was out for the Seahawks, so could have been a very different story there if Walker was available, but I think we're just at a point where it is still so early in the season. There are a lot of unknowns, but I don't have the utmost confidence in the Jets in this game. I think that they win, but in terms of covering the spread, I think the Patriots can cover that +6. This is the Jets' 3rd game in 11 days. That is a brutal blow from the schedule makers there, and I think that this is a game that the Patriots can keep competitive. That's what they showed. Maybe they're not the most talented, but they can keep games close, and that's what I'm expecting out of this one. Might not be the prettiest brand of offensive football, but I think the Patriots can hang with the Jets in this game. Now, that being said, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. 2 teams that are in very different positions in terms of expectations. Patriots, more in the rebuild mode, but the Jets have expectations and they are hoping to be Super Bowl contenders. And that's sort of what I want to dive into next here is looking at the Jets, sort of reflecting on what we've seen from them through the first 2 games, looking ahead to their schedule, starting with this Patriots game and beyond. Talk about what are these next steps that the Jets have to take in order to check the boxes of being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. That's what we are going to dive into. But before we do so, we are going to take a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.